My dad had our family's fortune. Now I'm uncovering the wealth he never wanted me to have. As a child, my life was too plain. My father, James Rivers, was a very disciplined man who made it a point to tell us how important it is to work for everything in life. To achieve all goals in life, one needed to work hard, faithfully, and most importantly, rely on themselves. While we weren't rich, neither were we struggling. He had a 9-to-5 job at a law firm and lived in a 2-room house on the outskirts of the town. When I was younger, my mother passed away, so it was only me and my father. It could be understood that we had all the markers of a middle-class family and lived beyond our limits. In high school and college, I worked part-time jobs to pay for my tuition. I did not need to expect any financial assistance from my father, as I knew he was not going to provide me with any. Like the other middle-class families scraping for money, I had come to terms with my reality. His perspective on life already informed me. Instead, he aimed to instill strong morals and values, which I am grateful for to this day. Everything transformed once I found out what his secret was. My story begins with a single phone call. I had just come back from work, extremely tired and ready to throw myself onto the couch, when I was suddenly called by my father's lawyer. I had not heard from my father in a few days, which was not alarming considering he was never too talkative, particularly after I moved out. Mr. Henley, the lawyer, did sound serious, asking me to come to his office the next day to talk about important family matters. Having a father that did not speak much never bothered me, so I didn't think much of it. However, perhaps he got himself in legal trouble or his health is in question, considering how distant he has been. Your father has passed away, Mr. Henley stated in a low, solemn voice. The breath was knocked out of me. Wait, how? I'm afraid your father died a few nights ago due to a heart attack. A neighbor found him. I apologize, Michael. This news was shocking, to say the least. No matter how complicated my relationship with my father was, he will always be my father. My head was still spinning as I tried to process everything. We had not talked in some time, and now I will never have the chance to address that. I didn't know, I said quietly, trying to grasp everything he just blurted out. He was sick, but I had no idea. Mr. Henley sighed. Well, he did not want anyone to know. The words barely escaped his mouth. Your father was a private man. Most people knew him as a man who does not care about anyone, especially you. That is his nature, bottling everything up and never letting anyone close. But the more we spoke, the more I realized there was deeper issues regarding my father's secrets than just his health. Your father left a will, Mr. Henley continued as he moved some documents on his table. He did not have many personal possessions, just the house and some items of value. But there is something more. Something more? I questioned, puzzled. My father always lived on a budget. What else could there possibly be? Mr. Henley cleared his throat, as though deciding how best to continue. Instructions were left behind stating that you are to receive a key that opens a safety deposit box at one of the city banks. He was certain no one else knew of this. The box is now in your name, and you alone are to open it. A safety deposit box? In my name? I was absolutely perplexed. My father had never said anything about a safety deposit box. And why would it be in my name? All of these thoughts gave me anxiety. My father was not somebody who left behind mystery boxes. He has always been straightforward, blunt even. Was he hiding something? The following day, I found myself in front of a big hair-raising bank in the center of the city, the key to my father's safety deposit grasped tightly in my fist. Getting some sleep the night prior was out of the question. My mind was racing with a million different questions. What was in that box? Why didn't my father ever speak of it? Why had he been so mysterious about every single thing leading up to his death? Following a short conversation with the manager, the clerk guided me to a private area in the back of the bank where the safety deposit boxes were stored. The clerk came back with a metal box the size of a briefcase and immediately stepped out, leaving me alone in the room. My heart was thumping out of my chest, and I couldn't take my eyes off the box. Everything my father had hidden away from me for years was in there. There was a reason he intended for me to find it after his death, and it was clear it was very important. With my hands shaking, I inserted the key and opened the box. As soon as I opened the box, I realized I was completely lost. There were old documents that were faded as well as small notebooks with their covers also worn out. However, once I began to look through the papers, my initial feeling of confusion transformed into pure shock. There were hundreds of bank statements available that dated back several decades. What confuses is that these statements didn't belong to an ordinary saving account. Some mid-balance accounts were offshore and had my head spinning. Millions of dollars were concealed in trusted investments which I barely understood. I anxiously sat there flipping through the pages. The shaking of my hand makes it clear. Some ledgers were filled with my father's familiar handwriting that was filled with real notations. The more of these documents I viewed, the more I uncovered the story. My father possessed a vast amount of wealth, one that he had buried deep in the ground. What I saw was unfathomable. Our lifestyle was publicly doable and comfortable, yet I sat in disbelief. For years I was told by my father that money was simple and should be rationed a certain way, so to speak. Now, millions were signed and ready in ocean accounts free from anyone's suspicious gaze. My mind raced with questions wondering about the money's origin, reasoning behind his disguise, and most importantly, why this was kept from my knowledge. For hours, I sat in that tiny room trying to understand the details in front of me. The notebooks consisted of writings that offered reasonable insight, but were disguised with various codes and abbreviations. The unfamiliar names were jumbled alongside random dates and transactions that spanned over the years. It was almost as if my father's dual identity had turned real life into a complex web of secrets that I had known nothing about. Gradually, as reality sunk in, I could not help but compile the documents that would allow me to showcase the truth of who my father really was. He was no longer a middle-class, working lawyer that struggled to provide for himself and family. He was a man who had everything, a figure with very profitable connections who built an empire behind sealed doors. The truth of the matter is, everything was kept hidden from me. Why? That question followed me like a shadow after I exited the bank. My feet felt heavier with every step I took. I had always believed to have known my father, but now I know what an illusion that was. The truth is, there is so much more that still lies beyond my grasp, and I have no notion of where to even begin to solve this riddle. One thing that I know for certain is this: my father concealed this treasure for some purpose. Now that I have uncovered it, I don't know if I am prepared for the aftermath of acknowledging it. You may never hear the story again if you don't subscribe to our channel, but if you do, congratulations. Stories like these will always be available to fascinating and interesting situations at your own time and comfort. Following the revelation about my father's secret wealth, my life took a dramatic turn. It was shocking to learn my father hoarded millions, and while we made it seem like we didn't have a lot of money, it was perplexing to figure out how he was able to keep such a big secret from everyone in the family and why he chose to live a modest lifestyle even when he did have money. The free time from work was spent analyzing and scanning through the files I had taken from the safety deposit box. The vast field notebooks were filled with scribbled notes and financial records which consisted of account numbers along with dates that were spread over several decades. The more I examined them, the more puzzling it became. What is the origin of the funds? Are they legal? Did my father's funds come from some legal activity? The offshore money suggested that whatever scheme my father was tangled in did not have a good reputation, and that terrified me. Names I either recognized or completely did not recognize at all were present in the notebooks. These names seemed to be related to a number of business deals, but a lot of them were written in a code so complicated that I was not able to crack it. The mystery deepened every time I stumbled upon another SERPTIC entry. One thing I was sure of was that my dad had been involved in something that was way bigger than my imagination. Knowing that the person who had raised me was completely different from whom I'd imagined him to be felt strange when walking into the house. My father's house felt primal when I stepped into it, as the simple decor and faded furniture made me think my father was a deceitful person. He always acted like he was struggling, but for some reason he had been hiding a fortune all along. A few days after my discovery, I went back to my father's house. The entire place felt like it was part of some elaborate grid. I went at every nook and corner of the house to see if there was any hidden information regarding the documents. To my disappointment, there was nothing. No safes, documents, or anything. I felt as though I was schooling in a new house. The sad part was that I felt like my dad never wanted to reveal his secrets to the world, which is extremely annoying. Why? Tired and annoyed as I was, I relaxed on the first blue-cushioned chair I saw in his study, which also happened to be one of the rooms I did not venture in much. He had an already reclining blue leather armchair in the room. He had previously warned me that he is an extremely protective person when it came to work, so he never wanted to share the room with me. However, at this point in time, I wish I had ignored all those warnings. I mean, all the times he put boundaries over things, it was too much. Sifting through his desk drawers, I felt like a detective looking for mysteries, searching for something, anything remarkable out of the ordinary. Many of the drawers were simply filled with paper, bills, receipts, letters, and the like. But in the last drawer, tucked away behind a collection of ancient folders, was an envelope that looked like my birthday gift, sealed and addressed directly to me. I believe one thing: I've mastered the art of making money. Take a look in the safety box and you'll see what I mean. It is a lot, more than I ever imagined having. What is a bit troubling if taken at face value is the sudden prominence of the funds alongside so many other aspects of life. Ending with matters I am certain you will, or at spoonfuls of legal issues you would get cherished for swimming around the sharks. At the end, how did my father run away from all of it for so long? If devoid of legal issues, could he have truly built his ghastly fortune through treasure hunting? It feels absurd thinking about. I kept it all hidden in other pieces of life for rather obvious reasons. Laid out in plain view, the table would become infested with vultures until every morsel is devoured whole. A situation only he could come to comprehend. Michael. In the end, it is a wealth bound up with so many strings, never untied without having to sacrifice oneself. Remove the money from the equation and I sink into traditions. I can be free. So, do you remember every letter of the alphabet and everything in between? I did tell you to be smart. However, if you decide to proceed, be advised that you will be entering a world that is far darker than you have ever imagined. Please know that I kept this from you in an effort to protect you. I hope this doesn't offend you too much. Love, Dad. I sat there in silence, utterly shocked, and holding the letter in my hand. My father's words made so much more sense now. The memories I have of him observing my every move and taking so much of an interest in everything I did made my heart race. The money was surely cursed. He had got himself involved with some dangerous people. The wealth that I unlocked was not just hidden away, but rather concealed in something sinister, something dark, something deeply illegal. When I was struggling to make a decision, my first instinct was to go with the suggestion given to me, which was to walk away. Forget about the money and choose to live a quiet, honest life. After everything I've come to find out, how could I possibly do that? How could I just pretend none of it existed and that my father hadn't been living a lie for all those years? Most prominently, how could I choose to walk away from the great fortune, especially when I don't know who those dangerous people are and what they'd be able to do once they find out I know about everything?